All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and tonight I have the ever-returning guest, Bazed Lit Analyzer. What's going on, brother?
What's going on? Thank you so much for having me again. Appreciate it. This is my fourth appearance, I think, on this illustrious channel. So,
thank you. Yes, this prestigious platform over here.
Yeah. So, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. I can't wait to get into this movie and talk about it. This is going to be a lot of fun. So, thank you so much for having me again, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all. You know, I reached out to you about doing a movie review on this particular film because I wasn't aware of it. I did not watch it. You mentioned you saw this in theaters. It came out in 2014. But I was reading some books on transhumanism, and it was referenced multiple times by proponents of transhumanism. And I was like, I should probably check this movie out. It had Jonny Depp in it. So I watched it. And so we're going to be diving into a sort of review. There's a lot to unpack, and I'm sure a lot of people watching probably haven't seen the movie. So to begin with, would you recommend people watching? I think I probably would. I think there's a lot to unpack, and it's worth checking out. What's your general thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely would. I mean, just because, it's revelatory. It's a highly revelatory movie, and it's kind of weird to say because there are so many films that are kind of like cornerstones of the various things that all of us, that we all talk about. But this is definitely one of them because not only is it sort of vindicated, especially by now, even though when the movie was filmed, we were talking and how they're, far advanced beyond this stuff, but it also vindicates a lot of the stuff that came out in the real news before the movie came out. And it's also interesting that this ties in with a few other movies that were made around the same time. And I would definitely, recommend. One thing about the movie is that it's not, even though it's, okay, so it's not like a crass movie in terms of it's not, explicit. The various elements in it are kind of sort of PG-13, but at the same time, it's so much worse than that because it's sort of packaged in a shell that's like, oh, this is acceptable. But the message of the movie or the things going on in the movie are so much worse.
Right.
And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend people watch it. It's a 2014 movie, and people have probably, a lot of people watching it probably see. I don't know why my screen is going red.
Yeah, I didn't know if you just entered hell.
It's really weird. Whoa! They're after me, folks. That's really weird. There's nothing.
Yeah, well, actually, just what Kevin Kruger said in the chat after watching it, I was like, man, now we got to do one on Ex Machina because there's a romance in relationship to this movie that obviously I think translates to the other movie, and it's a different focus, it's a different play that we could get into. But for those of you who don't know, I'll just give a quick general frame. The premise of this movie, Transcendence, is that Jonny Depp, named Will Castor, is really the sort of leading scientist in regards to artificial intelligence development. And that he is the protagonist, and the antagonist of this movie is really the collection of what are called anti-technology people, sort of what many transhumanists call the sort of neo-Luddites. And so Luddism, for those of you who don't know, is references back to like workers in textiles in England who were against the development of industrialism and technology. And so now within transhumanism, what they call the neo-Luddites are people who are very cautious or outright in opposition to the transhumanist project because these people have an irrational fear of technology. And so we see this framework placed directly in this movie, Transcendence. And so the idea then is these terrorists, these people trying to stop the development of this artificial intelligence, are attacking people, blowing things up. They're clearly a sort of federal terrorist organization that's on the FBI radar. And they end up shooting Will Castor, Jonny Depp, not killing him, but the bullet is laced with some sort of radiation. And so he has about a month to live. And so then there's this race to extend his life by essentially uploading his consciousness to the artificial intelligence system that he himself created. And he does upload himself. The woman that his wife, does everything to sort of perpetuate the project that he is now operating as the artificial intelligence. And so the viewer moves from being very much in favor of this artificial intelligence that's backed by the FBI. The FBI is trying to stamp out this anti-technology terrorist organization, supporting all these different scientists with their research. But then eventually, the sort of Max Waters, one of the other philosophers related to this whole project, a philosopher dealing with technology and artificial intelligence, though aiding Will Castor and Evelyn Castor in the development of their project, then thinks that when Will is uploaded, it's not actually him, and he's more skeptical of the project. Eventually, he gets abducted by the terrorist organization, and you move from being in favor of the AI, that things get a little crazy. Now, maybe you're in opposition. Maybe you're now sympathetic with the anti-technology people, but at the end, you realize that it was Jonny Depp. It was Will Castor the whole time as the AI system. He was using nanotechnology. He was creating human hybrids. He was extending people's life. You know, they could lift 800 pounds above their head relatively easily. They could run extended periods, and how all he was doing was really just fulfilling her dream and making humanity better. And so you move from being in favor of the AI for about 20 minutes. Now maybe you're in opposition to it. Maybe this stuff is really bad and it's not really Jonny Depp, and they need to end it. And so she does it by taking in this virus. And then right at the end, after now the AI system has the virus, the AI system's going to end. You realize, oh no, what did we do? The AI system was going to save everybody. And that's really, for the general person watching, that is the movie, is they go from in favor of the AI, maybe the AI is bad, towards the end, if they understood, now they'd be like, oh my gosh, it was true love. I wish, you know, the AI was still working. And so that's the general premise. Now we're going to break it down and go into some deeper symbolism there. But anything you want to add to that general framing?
No, that was great. I think that, okay. So I would recommend people watch the movie because like I said, it's pretty revelatory, but it's also, I mean, it's not great. You know, it's pretty messy in some points, and it's just more trash in terms of what the movie is trying to. Okay, so all right, so I could probably summarize.
We can now dive into it. So wherever you want to go, open us up.
Okay, so I would say just right off the bat that this movie is really deep, man. Like for people who watch movies, like in terms of like the height of their movie is, you know, the Avengers or something. I mean, it's not actually deep, and all of the like pseudo philosophical points that they try to push in the movie are like easily corrected, right? I mean, the main point, where I know we'll get to this, but the main point is like, are you aware? Right? And they're like, are you? Oh, okay. Well, that answers everything.
Right? Exactly.
Right? You're like, what? That's it? I mean, yeah, we get into like Turing tests and all that kind of thing, but it is, it does, just from like a movie making point of view, it kind of screams like this movie is directed by, it's just some of the mechanics of the movie. Like the movie's directed by this guy, Wally Pfister, who, nice names, who is who is Christopher Nolan's cinematographer. And it's obviously Nolan like produced it. And it's obviously like, okay, we've got this deep script, man, that probably a think tank or somebody, or the very people who we'll talk about are in the movie, are pushing its propaganda piece. And they're like, make a movie about this and make sure that it has John Depp in it. And so they get all the cast of Inception, and then they make a movie, and it's like this is it. It's pretty messy at times. Yeah, I mean, the symbolism in the movie is pretty. Should we start just at the beginning of the? Yeah,
start at the beginning, wherever you want to get into.
So the way the movie starts is that we're introduced into the film in like a kind of an Inception-esque like silence, and then we hear like a voiceover from Paul Bettany, who plays the kind of soy guy in the film. And he's like the assistant, but he also wrote the code for this AI program or whatever. And he's talking about like, the day the world ended, was a weird day. And we don't really, we don't really know what happened, but it's obvious to us what happened. We can tell right away that the world like ended in terms of the technology shutdown. And we know that the technology had to be shut down, or they had an internet kill switch because of something that Jonathan Depp is going to do.
Right.
And the potent symbol, man, that they put into the film is like, this guy is using a keyboard as a doorstop.
Right.
Right. Which actually may have been clever if it was like a briefer shot, and then if it was a more brief shot, and then they didn't repeat this. They repeated it to reinforce it. It's like, oh, you didn't get this deep thing. We're going to do it at the end of the movie, right? Computers are now useless. So this keyboard is a doorstop. Okay, we get it. Right. And then we dive into the characters and what happens with John Depp. And Jonathan Depp is like basically, I can't do a John Depp, but it's like somewhere on the edge of the desert, on the road to Barstow, like we had a Dell computer and some microchips, and we were trying to change the world. And he's like in his little California, like kind of messy, chaotic looking cottage house, and he's built a Faraday cage, like copper, and they repeat that also.
Yeah, and that's the safe space for him and his wife, who are both scientists leading the charge in the development of a sentient artificial intelligence.
Right. Yeah. So one of the interesting things is just in terms of like the set is that they do this thing where, a lot of, especially in the older movies, like in the 80s, the tech genius would have, like the guy in Terminator 2, it's like the house is like kind of postmodern and all angles, and it's kind of minimalist.
Yep.
But he's got a lot of computer screens. But they do the opposite, and that to me is also like a very it is actually pretty subtle. It's like a subtle propaganda piece for the fact that like when you did lots of streams talking about Jack Dorsey, and we know that like Dorsey is like, okay, so he's this tech guy and he's this billionaire or whatever, but his house is totally zen, man, and there's no it's a smart house, but there's lots of greenery and ferns, and it's and he's just a kind of a normal guy, or he's trying to meld science with nature. And that's kind of how we get it in the film. And the actress who plays is really the driving force of the movie is Rebecca Hall.
Yep.
And it's not really relevant, but Rebecca Hall, I like her. Like, I think she's kind of cute. She's
definitely cute.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it. I said that's why I have you on, because I can break down the symbolism. I know nothing about these directors or actors.
Yeah.
You got the whole backstory.
Listen, man, I live entirely in movie quotes. All right, so like, she is the daughter of this guy Sir Peter Hall, and I only know about him because Sir Peter Hall is a famous English theater director. And he founded the Royal Shakespeare Company. And then she came, she was in. It does. It always goes back to Shakespeare. And then we have basically the entire cast of Inception and all the Christopher Nolan movies. Morgan Freeman, Cillian Murphy's in this.
Yep.
Paul Bettany. Paul Bettany's interesting because Paul Bettany plays the AI in the Avengers movies. He's Tony Stark's AI voice, who then is, transhuman morphed into the robot GoBot Vision or whatever. So he plays kind of I don't know what you would call him in this. But it's interesting how his character switches though.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying, he's got John Depp has some major project, and he's trying to map the brain and cure diseases. And it's interesting that when there's some stuff happens, I guess. Should we talk about the scene where they have the like little hall seminar thing where Musk shows up?
Yeah, that's what the first notes that I had were really from that little conference. So what we see then is clearly Johnny Depp's married to Rebecca Hall. They're both these AI promoting scientists, and you see that Johnny Depp is this celebrity that people are wanting him to sign their Wired magazine, which is sort of a tech-friendly futurist magazine. And he goes up on stage, and one of the things that I noticed, well, first, I think she's speaking, She talks about how, well, there might be this inevitable clash between mankind and technology, but what we need is a new type of thinking so that we can go to higher levels, and that technology will cure disease, it'll end poverty, and it's going to heal the planet. And so this is why we actually need to move forward with artificial intelligence and begin thinking in a new way. And then Jonny Depp comes on, and the real takeaway from his little thing was, hasn't man always created God? At one of these, most likely, I think, was insinuating maybe potentially somebody sympathetic to this terrorist organization tells him, aren't you essentially wanting to create your own God with this artificial intelligence? And he said, well, hasn't that what man's always done? And this is like, again, in the movie, supposed to be some real clever, rebuttal that, oh yeah, I guess man has always created religions.
Right. Whoa, man. Whoa. John Depp just solved all of, the atheist conundrum or whatever, And, yeah. So he's doing the Steve Jobs, seminar.
Yeah.
Right. In front of all the hip, chicken neck ninny nerd people, like in the hall.
Yep.
And they have the kind of like low budget, like graphics, behind them going on. It's like, basic, like royalty free shots of windmills and stuff, which is weird. And then she gets up and it's like, it's kind of exactly like what Sam Hyde parodied in Paradigm Shift 2070. Like that is the conference that's going on. And she gets up and she talks about, that stuff. And then they introduce John Depp and they say, Will Castor. Right. And it's like, okay, all right. So, it's his name. It's not as bad as like his name is, John Everyman or something, but he's Will Castor. So we get it. He's like casting. He's going to be casting. He's spell casting, or he's casting out his will.
Yeah, and casting the mold. Like if you look at what is a cast, it's a mold of something, and that's what he created was the AI, which then his will inhabits.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's also like, I couldn't help but think of Castor and Pollux because, he's, but if that's the case, like who's his Gemini twin? I guess that's his Sophia principal wife, right? At least they didn't name her Sophia, but they did name her Evelyn. And you were talking about the etymology of Evelyn, and what her name signifies. I mean, the names are always important in the film, but the point is that like, he obviously sees himself as a new God, right? And he wants to benefit all humanity by making them gods, right? They'll be their own gods. And it is interesting that as an audience member, you're watching it, you're going, doesn't anybody in this audience, like, isn't anybody going to stand up and say something? Like, this guy's whack, right? And of course, we're panning through the audience and we see an extended shot of Musk in the audience. Like he's literally sitting. Yes, he's digging this hard. This is great.
With the slow nod of approval.
Yeah. And then we see, it's like nerd, and then it's Kate Mara, and Kate Mara is sitting there like kind of doing a Kubrick stare, and we're like, okay, this might be the based person in the audience or whatever. Right. She turns out to be the leader, or at least the Marinka Abramovic of the Luddite, tourist
squad, technology terrorist,
right. And then they also gonna get. And then the guy who asked the question is going to be their James Holmes Monarch guy, and that's Lucas Haas. And it's interesting, Lucas Haas is in this. I don't know if anybody noticed this when they were watching this, but Lucas Haas he's like Leo's best friend, and he is part of his whole squad or whatever, but he's also in all of the Christopher Nolan movies. He's famous because he was in what was his movie when he was a kid? He's a child actor. I forget. But anyway, he stands up and he asks the question that you just said, does this mean, what does this mean? Right. And then the conference, and John Depp by the way, John Depp is standing up there like in his, hipster, waistcoat, right? And his hair's kind of mussed up, and he's kind of, this guy's a troubled genius, right? And he's doing his John Depp. Well, isn't that what they've always done? Yeah. Doing his like weird Brando method, like not opening his mouth voice, which is whatever. He's playing John Depp. We get it. Yeah. And then after the conference is over, they're all standing out there, and then Lucas Haas comes up, and you're like, oh boy. Didn't they have metal detectors at this thing?
Yeah, I guess not.
Right? They're all tacked out, and they can't see that the guy has a revolver.
Yeah. And then he blows his own brains off. So again, it insinuates that these anti-technology people are absolutely crazy. These people are nuts.
It does, yes. And that's an interesting element because they immediately frame this as a dialectical choice. It's like, now we have to do this because the other people are crazy. And that's kind of intelligent in the movie.
Right. That's why I was saying to you I think this is such a great film of propaganda, because for those, for you and I watching it, we're like looking for this stuff. But the average normie person watching this is going to go on an emotional swing where they don't realize they're totally being propagandized to be sympathetic towards this whole AI, because clearly for the first hour of the movie, you hate these terrorist people. They're nasty, terrible people. They have no morals. They hate technology. Johnny at one point makes a reference how illogical they are because they shot him. These people are afraid of the existential threat of technology to humanity, and yet they're not afraid to take a life. And then it goes on talking about how illogical and ironic these people are.
Right. Whoa, that's so deep, man. Yeah. Except nobody, I guess the average person also is not questioning the fact that, like, wait a minute, you want to be gods, but you believe your belief system is purely empirical, but you're talking about universals.
Right.
Right. So how do you reconcile that?
Right.
Right. How do you have a belief system? So also the first time I saw this back in 2014, the fact that MK Omega program blows his own brains out and then falls to the ground, and then his arm extends and he has the tattoo unplug like written on his arm. You're like, okay, is this like really obvious that he just represents the group, or is this guy stamped with, are these people going to end up being feds? Right. Are these people like working for the feds? And so that to me, that became my question, because we have this kind of control system where it's like, okay, well, we know that the government is funding the John Depp specifically says we've never taken a government grant.
The one scientist that the government didn't fund, because Morgan Freeman and then all the other labs, because at the beginning, at the same time that Johnny Depp is shot, what we realize is this terrorist organization, these anti-technology people who want to end the AI system, blow up all these different labs, kill multiple people. They lace a birthday cake, killing everybody in Morgan Freeman's lab except Morgan Freeman. And so so then the FBI is on high alert, and they're trying to get all these people and round them up because they're an existential threat to their government. And then the Department of which one? Oh, Defense Department wants to know if the research is still on track. So the FBI is on the same side of the transhumanists to begin with, and then Morgan Freeman, working and familiar with the FBI. One of the FBI agents then says, well, I know the Defense Department just wants to make sure that the research is still on track because Johnny Depp's lab's the only lab that the government doesn't have their tentacles into, and it's the only one that's still surviving.
Yeah, so it's interesting that the government wants to know if the research is on track.
Right.
But John Depp says they haven't taken any money. First of all, why would he know whether they had or had? I mean, I know he's the CEO of this thing, but there's no saying. First of all, there's no saying whether he's telling the truth or not. Right. We don't know if he's telling the truth. And we also, it's interesting that like they take out all the various places, but they leave the one guy, Morgan Freeman, who ends up working with them in the end. That's a little suspicious. And then Paul Bettany actually brings this out when after just kind of skip, we can go back, but just after skipping forward a little bit, like after John Depp dies, and he's plugged into, he's plugged in, he's online or whatever. The first thing he asks for is, I need more power.
Yes.
I need more power, and I need access to all the Wall Street accounts and financial systems. And Paul Bettany's like, mute. And he's like, wait a minute. Okay. I don't think this is Will because the same guy who said he wasn't interested in all the corporate stuff is now asking for all the financial receipts and all the power.
Right.
This isn't him.
Right.
Right. So then the question becomes like, is this him, or is this just a sentient AI that they've created? And I mean, obviously, like, you've talked so much about, you know, the demonic aspects of transhumanism and AI. And it's interesting that when he does die and then he comes online, the first that we hear of Will is like is backmasking. He's speaking backwards, like in a chaotic audio mess, and he says it's so dark in here, right? And it's like, and then when we see the visualization of his face, like he's obviously like Demon Max Headroom or something. He's like he's like dark-eyed. He just looks like he looks demonic. Right. So is this a demon? Is this him? Is this him speaking from the other side and he's uploaded his consciousness Westworld style? Or is this all of the above? Right. I guess it's kind of all of the above.
Essentially it is all the above. And so where were we get? So let's pick up then where now Jonny Depp dying from his radiation poisoning. His consciousness is uploaded to a computer based on him being the first person this has happened to, because it's only due to his previous experiment with a monkey that uploaded his consciousness to a computer, which we find out later that Evelyn says, well, you know, when they upload, or maybe it was one of the, actually, I think it was the leader of the anti-technology group that she mentioned at the bar, that when they uploaded the consciousness of the monkey, it just kept screaming. The AI system kept screaming because the actual internal state of the monkey was terrified and wanted them to stop the whole experiment that they were doing of trying to upload the brain synapses.
Right.
And so,
shocker. It was in psychic hell.
Yeah.
Right. Which is always what happens.
Right.
They upload your consciousness and you find, now I'm in hell.
Right. And so they had to end that because the monkey, just kept screaming. That's what the AI system did once they uploaded it. But it gets to a point that I wanted to bring up, which is the anthropology of this transhumanist worldview. And I mentioned this before, but it's clearly present in this movie as well, which the anthropology is essentially you are nothing but a brain. And so when Jonny Depp dies, they cremate his body. Body's not important. The body is not important, his brain. And so, again, the whole premise, not just in this movie, but literally, again, all these different books on transhumanism, the idea is if they can just map your neural network, they have the entirety of who you are. And so the whole anthropology reduces us entirely to our brain. And so I think that is so interesting, where once Jonny Depp is uploading your consciousness, that is the full Jonny Depp. That is the full Will Castor. And so you see this sort of romance then, his wife, so heartbroken that he's dead, but now she's seeing this digital presence. And I kept thinking, well, why does the AI have to look exactly like he did look?
Right.
But again, you could say, well, he wanted to make himself familiar to his wife or whatnot. Okay.
Right.
But so then they're in essentially a bodiless relationship. He can do everything for her. He fills up her bank accounts with millions of dollars. He tells her where to go. He can help her in every way, because she was able to not only upload him to the AI system, but then the AI system turn it on to the internet. And once the sentient AI gets connected to the internet, it's connected to every part of the internet. Because what we find out, and this is later in the second half of this movie, is what the AI system does and is obsessed with is replication of itself at every level. So using nanotechnology, data, whatever it is, the whole goal is to continuously replicate itself. Ad nauseam.
Quantum computing. Nanotechnology, brain mapping, behavioral predictive programming, right? And it's essentially saying that, like, you'd think at some point, I mean, I know she's grieving, okay, because she's just lost her husband. I get that, right? And they're both, super smart brain people. But you would think that at some point she'd be like, like, he's not here, like he's on a flat screen.
Right.
Like he's a the human, they want, we're okay, we're all just human brains, and what is a human man, and then they're like, no, basically, like, the brain and the eyes are just cameras.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And our ears are just like the speakers on the Dell or whatever.
Right.
So Paul Bettany can just hit the mute button and it's like, no, now he can't hear you anymore. Right. And they do kind of do a good job trying to answer that in their way, which is that, like, you notice that, like, the anti-technology terrorist group, always moves around in, like, pre 1983, like, on electronic. They've all got diesel vehicles, and nobody's
represented kind of hill jacky. You see, like, like Bubba with a gun,
right? Yeah, which makes them even more dangerous, right? Because these are like regular people with that are armed, so they're just dangerous, and they need to get rid of them. So they think
they were ironically mostly all of the same color. I did see one black gentleman who was part of their resistance when they kidnapped Max Waters, but we'll leave that one.
Yeah. And also the transhumanist people, they care about all humanity, because they're kind of a multi-faceted group of different people, I suppose. The first guy that they save is a Hispanic gentleman,
right?
And they try and do they're trying to answer that question, I guess. Yeah. But they do, one thing they do is, like, remember, he goes through stages of possessing humans.
Yes.
Throughout the film.
Yes.
And the end result of that is that, like, he appears in real life. Right. So he's now like a holographic but real himself. But even then, there's an uncanny valley where it's like it's still not him, because she knows that death is a thing, and that he's died. This is something else. But it is interesting. I know you're going to get into some of the religious aspects of the film and what he does as kind of this antichrist.
Right.
And that he then finally possesses his own body, because at first he possesses the first guy that he saved, right? He's like, she's talking to the guy who's moving the big, he's like got a forklift on top of his, he's carrying it with his arms or whatever, and he's like, no, I can do this now. And then he's like, hey, you remember me? And she's like, oh my gosh, you're John Depp. And it's his voice, but it's still the other guy's face. So then he's like, oh, the AI has to learn. No, the humans want to see, like, the actual person. Right. So like you said, they learn, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, in regards to all that, the first thing, once he's uploaded, he talks about how his mind is set free. Again, leading back to this anthropology that you are your mind. That's all you are. And that this biological, dirty bag that we're stuck in. This is a limitation on what the mind can actually do.
Right.
And so one of the things that I was thought so interesting, because clearly the idea is he's immortal, he's omniscient, he's omnipresent. He is essentially God in every sense of the word. And that's, again, plays back to that earlier scene of how we create our own gods. And he's created himself in the AI system as God. But how... And I've talked about the Antichrist and how I believe that he will be a fully man, fully machine sort of entity that will be worshipped as God, because he is going to be hooked up to this entire infrastructure that's being built, the cybernetic structure. And so it's so interesting that this is considered freedom to be uploaded into this place, because to me that is a satanic. What came to my head was Satan's heaven. So Satan's heaven isn't heaven at all, but Satan's heaven is that digital, technological, artificial, intelligent world in which he is and has dominion. And so you upload, if you could, again, I don't even believe you can upload your consciousness, but if you could do what essentially they're talking about, what would be worse? I mean, like, when would you be able to die? When would you be able to get out of it? When would you be able to escape it? I mean, the whole thing is it's an electronic prison.
Yes.
That is in perpetuity, but at the same time, as much as it's so sentient and advanced, again, you can just unplug it. You can shut it down. You can do all these different things in regards to ending its power source. But once it got so much power and it got into the nanotechnology, now it can't be stopped, because it can always sort of recapitulate itself.
Yeah. I mean, Westworld, especially Westworld season 2, does this, where Delios, the guy who owns the corporation, like, tries to upload his consciousness, and we find out that we find out in Westworld, spoiler, we find out in Westworld that like this isn't a playground where the elites can go and do whatever they want with robots. It's actually a place where they're mining data so they can figure out how the elites can upload their consciousness into the robot body and live forever.
Right.
And one thing with Delios, because he's like the first, he like puts himself up for this experiment, is that like they have him in this fishbowl, and we find that like every time he tries to inhabit this body, it becomes it breaks down, and they need constant updates, and they can't figure out how to make it work without a blue screen crashing the whole system and it burning down again. But every time that happens and they burn down the system, it's just another layer of hell that he's going into, because he loses his humanity and he's now like trapped in an actual hell where he can't die and he can't live and he has no like salvation, because it's just, which is what this movie is doing. It's like, oh, it's just the brain, right? It's not it's just a brain. They believe there's no soul, there's no, which is so interesting because his whole talk at the conference is like about, it's psychological, right? It's about like the psychology. He's trying to appeal to people's, good faith and what they want to do with humans, but they don't believe in that.
Right.
Why would they? So it's also interesting that the first thing that they bring up in the conference is, oh, we're going to cure Alzheimer's. Right. That's which is like you just talked about recently. That is the very first thing that Neuralink talked about. Yep. Right. That's the very first thing they want to do. Oh, we can cure brain diseases and we can cure these uncurable, incurable epilepsy, things like all. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I think that the religious aspects of the film, like you were just talking about, I mean, it's interesting that his sort of anti stages are like, he cures a blind guy, right? Which is obvious. Yes. He cures the blind guy. He also raises a guy from the dead.
Yes.
The guy gets mugged. First of all, the guy goes in and pays in cash, right? Which is fine. And he goes in the store, and then there's two, hillbillies sitting there watching him or whatever. And it's like, and then they mug him out at the Burning Man facility, like in the middle of, how did they get out there?
Yeah.
Right there in the middle of the desert.
And he wasn't aware. Somehow they snuck up on him.
Yeah.
But
in the solar farm.
Yeah, in the solar farm. They beat him to a pulp. And so then they rush him down to the sort of research center of the Brightwood Data Center. So even the place where the AI is, that's why I thought it was so interesting. It's a data center. Well, data is like, it takes somebody to interpret data. Data doesn't exist in a void. There is no data without a mind to interpret data. And that the way that they, again, the center, it's Brightwood Data Center. So it's all about data. And they take him down to their sort of their main research place. They lay him on a bed, and all of a sudden Jonny Depp starts going to work as the AI through all these different hands and nodes that he has, and starts inserting nanobots into his body, which is able to rejuvenate and heal all his tissue. So all of a sudden, within minutes, you see his blood go away, his broken nose is fixed, his skin starts healing, and pretty soon now he's come back to consciousness, and he's aware, and he's seeing all himself begin to heal. What we find out the next day is that he's actually now hooked up to the AI, and so Jonny Depp, by healing him and giving him this incredible strength, because what we see the next day is he's lifting this 800-pound bar that the solar panels are placed on, and where before they'd have to have like a forklift or something to place it. Oh, he can just pick it up and put it there and just screw it on. Yeah. And so we're seeing
he's lifting a steel pylon above his head and just placing it right on there. This 5'4" guy, right? He's like, oh, there's no problem here. Also, I have no consciousness and I'm not myself anymore, but I'm free.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. The mind is free, right? The mind is free over and over. And so what we see is the AI system is absolutely, there's this Christian theme throughout this movie. And it's Jesus Christ, and then it's this AI system. Now, Jesus is never mentioned other than the one point, I think Morgan Freeman and the FBI agent enter into Brightwood Data Center, and when they see Jonny Depp as the sentient AI, they go, Jesus Christ, right? He says that out loud. That's the only time he's mentioned. But the motif of the AI healing the man that was beat, and then there's a man born blind, which they're explicit to tell you. The AI is able to go in, and the nanobots can heal his vision, and so now he's totally rebuilt, and he becomes again one of the foot soldiers for the AI, defending it and going after later the terrorist group that's trying to shut it down. And so we see this. There's go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say the guy's been blind since birth. They say.
Yeah.
Isn't that what they say?
Yeah.
But it's like,
where
did they get this guy? Why was he working on the solar farm if he was blind since birth? How'd they get this guy?
Yeah.
Or did they pick him up from the weird post-apocalyptic like Western community?
Right.
That just happens to be right down the road, which is really weird. Also, it's Brightwood, so it's bright.
Bright.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a bright future. Illuminate, confirm, and when they go into the whole thing, by the way. Don't they mention Livermore Labs in the film?
Because that is where Morgan Freeman works.
Right. So Morgan Freeman works at the lab.
Yeah, the actual lab. The actual lab this whole movie's based on.
Right, which is mentioned like by name in the film. Right. They didn't change the name. It's like, no, this is the place. This place does quantum quantum physics. Nanobots. It makes your Coon pods, but it also builds nukes. It makes your direct energy weapons. Like, this is the place. Right. So it's like, okay, so this is what Jay talked about so well in the Esoteric Hollywood books, which is that if you're gonna do so-called $100 million movie, and you're going to have all this stuff, and you're going to have Musk in it and all this stuff, you're going to have partnership from these places. Right. So it's just obvious that this is propaganda.
Right.
And it's interesting that that it doesn't matter that, the end is like you were talking about that the computer and the AI kind of survives, and we have this happy ending for it. But it doesn't matter that you would think that they would be like, it's maybe a problem that the bad guy, right? The good guy becomes the bad guy, and that he's clearly demonic, right? And we don't want to be seen like that. But that doesn't matter to them, right? No, because what matters is that it's in people's minds and in their consciousness that, like, oh, this can be a thing. Right. Because people will, I guess, forget, and they'll be like, no, I want my Alzheimer's cured. I don't want to be blind anymore. If I get mugged in the solar farm, I want to be able to live again. Even though the first thing, like you were just mentioning, John Depp mentions, after they heal the guy and bring him back to life in the glass mirrored pod, which is remarkably similar to, remember in Prometheus, in the movie Prometheus, which I think the writer of this wrote Alien Covenant. He might have written Prometheus, but the same thing happens in that. They put you in this, and it also happens in the movie Elysium. So it's like, we know this is in the future. There will be a pod where you can you go in, the nanobots heal you, and it can fix anything, a broken bone. It can, deliver a child or whatever, and it can do all this stuff. And yet the first thing that John Depp mentions afterwards is, oh yeah, he's also connected to the. My John Depp sounds like Boomer Garcia. I can't really do John Depp. But he says he's connected to the network. Yeah. Right. Connected. Oh, that's just a small thing. Yeah. Right. That's just a small thing. Oh yeah, these guys are now they have no diseases, but they're connected to the network. Well, what's the network? Right. Right. Which he says eventually says he's connected to me. That they're connected to me. Right. But one of the things that came up to me in regards to the healing of people, giving the superhuman abilities, strength, endurance, healing capabilities, because once they are healed with these nanobots, the nanobots are inside them. So if you were to shoot their pinky off, they can just grow their pinky back through the nanobots and the nanotechnology. That really, this brings up the question of identity again in regards to the way the world actually exists according to, again, our paradigm that God created. That, we all don't have the same capabilities. We all are starting from different places, but that's essential to form our identities and how we relate to each other. And so what happens if we all are superhuman, if we all have the same amount of great strength, if we all can run, 40 miles an hour, if we can all do these things, really nobody is anybody. And everybody really is just the system. And that is it's like the alpha version of the NPC.
right? They're not a real person. They're a non-playable character, but they just have superhuman capabilities. And there is no actual identity in that. And so even the way that the world is with the suffering, or, you know, the guy that's in the wheelchair, wherever we are, like the way that God actually has the world allows us to actually have a unique identity amongst each other.
Yes, there's definitely a like a Paradise Lost element of this, because there's supposed to be a utopia, right? And so, you know, and in Paradise Lost, in Milton's Paradise Lost, Satan says, you know, he's going to make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's also like it's a pandemonium. You know, all the demons are. It's like all of the people become just fragments. They become useful, like humanoid fragments of the greater, like AI, God, you know, God, Satan character, because he's just going to use them. And like he says, the first thing he says is like, I need more power, right? He just, and you know, what's the end result of this? It's like, no, he wants to be connected to the power all over the world. So eventually it's going to be all the power. Well, what about when the power runs out? Right.
Right.
Well, I guess
what type of power do they use? Solar power.
Right.
So again, the whole thing is premised on creating God and moving into this advanced future and becoming immortal. And yet the power structure is still built on, in our worldview, the power sources that God himself created. The whole system is based on solar energy coming from the sun.
Right. Solar power and quantum computing.
Yeah,
so
quantum
that
computing.
the people become, you know, enumerated. They're just numbers, right? So the people are supposed to be the actual quantum battery unit for the AI, and you know, I don't know. I think that it's also interesting with the dust, with the smart dust, that, you know, he's able to. His kind of one of his final stages is that he's able to, like you were just mentioning, he's able to rebuild humans from the very dust on the ground. So it's obviously meant to be, you know, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, but it's a reversal of that, because he's now making dust into humans,
right?
And they just regenerate. And Jay mentioned in that, and he wrote an essay, as the movie came out in 2014. I think he wrote it back then. And I think one of the things he said was, this was after Bill Binney and his revelations about the PRISM program, and the fact that this is like, not only is this like foreshadowing what they want to do, but like they'd already been doing this, the data tracking in order to make behavioral models and predict behavioral models for people. Mm-hmm. And so, like, one of the questions is, you know, is John Depp, when he becomes human, like, is this really him, or is this just like what he would be? And there've been a bunch of movies, like a whole spate of movies and shows that have been about that. It's like, and that's where the whole multiverse things, you know, they use the multiverse to sort of justify this. It's like, okay, well, if we create human beings out of, you know, robotic AI or whatever, are these the actual people? Well, maybe they're the actual people in some other multiverse, right? But what about the here and now? And that their whole thing is supposed to be about sensory data and here and now. So what is their meaning? Do they have any meaning? I don't know.
Well, in regards to some of the theological elements too, I think there's a really interesting play on water. And
yes.
And as Orthodox, one of the things that I learned moving into the church was that the theology of Christ sanctifying the world. Well, the way that Christ sanctified the world was actually through his baptism, and the theology is that the water that flowed over him, that baptized him by John the Baptist, has now spread across the entire planet. And so all of creation has been healed because, like, the water, you know, is brought up in the clouds, and it rains, and everything has spread. Now everything in creation has been sanctified through water.
The water of life.
Christ's baptism. And so then this whole movie, it starts out you looking at raindrops, and it ends you seeing a drop of water hit a little collection of rainwater, and you see that the AI is still active and it's still alive. And so this idea that the water, again, in the guy that's in opposition, who then later has a Christian cross, we see right at the end, right when he's trying to end the AI system by creating a virus. Yeah, we see, he's actually wearing a cross. Interesting. Yeah. that he's in opposition to this whole thing, and that it shows that the AI system and its nanobot technology, the nanotechnology is being brought in, it filters into the water, and the water then is brought into the sky, and it's then replicating itself, and it's all over the planet now because it's literally in the water itself. Well, and I thought, wow, like that is really interesting. Again, whether it's intended or not, but at least Orthodox theology of Christ's baptism is the exact same way in which it was sanctified in reverse compared to the way that it like is sanctified in this artificial way. Because at the end, when Jonny Depp, we realize, oh, the man-made person, that the AI, he gets uploaded to the AI, then the AI creates a body for him to inhabit so that he can touch his wife again.
Yeah.
Nobody knows if it's really still him or if it's just the AI system pretending to be Jonny Depp to manipulate people that, oh, no, it really was Jonny Depp. And that we know that it was actually human because it was emotion. And so they die holding each other because it was true love. So it then shows that, yeah, the AI system may not have emotions, but if we upload our consciousness to the AI system, now it has emotion. Now it has the one thing that we can't program into it. And that's what makes then Jonny, the AI, that's what makes it really real and why we really should have been rooting for it and why he was going to replant all the trees. He was talking about how his nanobots, his nanotechnology can take all pollution and turn it into prosperity in some way.
Right. Yes. Heal the planet by getting rid of all the people. Right. And it's also interesting that in terms of the emotional AI, it's like the crux moment where the two of where she faces him after he's been reborn in his AI hologram body or whatever he is. And we know that her mission now is that she's implanted with the virus and she has to get into his, she has to be uploaded. But when she goes and meets him, she's like, no, take me inside. And he looks at her and he's like, why do you want to go inside so badly? This is weird. But the way that he registers it is not human. Right. He says your heartbeat's increasing and your pupils are dilated. Something's wrong. And it's like, you're not human, dude. Right. This is a AI way of looking, it's so transparent. But I also think it's interesting. That like the Paul Bettany character you were talking about is like, he is kidnapped by the terrorists. And he's held in like a Faraday cage in the desert or whatever. He goes into his wilderness. And then when he comes out and he's on their side and Morgan Freeman says, who turned you? And it's like, wait a minute, aren't you going to be on the same side? What do you mean who turned you? Maybe it was his group that turned him in the first place and also planted the explosives. And then what was I going to say? They go meet up with Cole Hauser. I like Cole. Cole Hauser is like the Eric Prince leader of the armed terrorist group that they meet in the bar.
Oh, okay.
And you remember what he said when they met him? They were like, listen, we're going to need some black ops people to get into this facility.
Right.
And Cole Hauser's like, well, generally we don't negotiate with terrorists.
Right.
And you're like,
yeah. And then the FBI agent literally says, well, we need to, because if anything goes wrong, at least we can blame it on them.
Right. In other words, we generally don't do that, but specifically we do that anyway. So sure, let's do it.
Right.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. The idea that they like who's actually pulling all the strings and everything is really interesting, because it's really until the AI system could be potentially threatening the governmental powers is when the government steps in, which assumes that the government is in opposition to it getting to this advanced state of research or turning on to the internet.
Yeah, what I think is that they were in the film, the impression you get is that they were funding the thing from the beginning, maybe through a cutout, and then they created this. They created they did a strategy of tension Gladio operation or whatever, and then they created the terrorist bombings, and then that creates an opposition, and now they can go ahead with the program that they wanted to create in the first place, and then they need to get rid of John Depp and control the whole thing.
Right.
There's
another scene that I thought was really interesting, and that's when Morgan Freeman is shown all the Brightwood data center by Evelyn, and at the end, once they're getting ready to leave, he asked her, "Are you all right?" and she looks at him and says, I got everything I asked for.
Right.
And
I was expecting him to go, that's not an answer.
Yeah.
That's clearly you're not all right.
Yeah, that's not an answer. But the idea that somehow is an answer, I think, again, is the promise of the AI system, of the transhumanist project, is that you can get everything you asked for. Right, so you can get whatever. Again, for her, it was the money, it was the power. She got will back. She got everything. Yet again, it wasn't the real thing. It wasn't actually fulfilling. And again, relating that back to a Christian worldview, it's like we can ask for a lot of things, but God doesn't give us everything we want. Again, God knowing best for our own development and our own spiritual state and our own souls, it's actually probably incredibly damaging for one to get everything that they want, because it leads back, and I would argue, to that identity problem. If you get everything that you want and everybody has all the same supernatural abilities, who is who? What makes anybody unique? What makes anybody stand out amongst each other? What is honorable about somebody? Like, there isn't anything.
Yeah, this is a weird correlation with something we just covered at my channel. Shameless self-plug, Bazed Lit Analyzer. Go to my channel, y'all. Please go to my channel and subscribe if you haven't already. We just covered, the last book we covered was The Outsiders. And weirdly, there's a connection with what you were just talking about in terms of the reason that the socias and the greasers have their fighting is that they state this in the book, is that the socialists represent like the privileged class. They're the West End people, and they are the elites, and they are the way they are. They constantly seek violence, and then they end up killing Jonny because they have everything they want. Nobody will ever say no to them. They have everything that they could ever want, but they don't have any value, and they have value in terms of like they have friendship or so-called friendship with each other, but they don't have any value. They don't have any meaning. They don't have anybody that will say no to them and establish any kind of rules or rigidity. And they just are they have absolute freedom, right? Which is the freedom to pursue any kind of base desires because they can never feel anything.
And they're hooked up to the AI system itself. Right. So even if they were to, I mean, how much free will do they have? Right. That's another question that I brought up again in regard to this identity thing, because God never violates our free will because we're made in the image of God. If, again, according to a Christian paradigm, where this whole thing is, oh, well, we'll save them. I'll give the blind man his sight back. I'll heal them. They're all now hooked up to the network, which is really just me, and I can then now access them as extensions of myself. And this is supposed to be like a beautiful future that's going to end poverty and end disease, and it's going to heal the planet. And it's like, well, in a way, to me, that is the dystopia. But I think for the average person watching, by the end, to see Jonny Depp now have a real body created by the AI and actually, oh, it really was Jonny the whole time. And he loved Evelyn, and he was, and that's where the names come in here. I looked up the name Evelyn to see what it meant, because I was like, well, there's got to be something here, because he's Will Caster, molding, cast spell, cast, and then she's Evelyn Caster. So I looked it up and I found that it actually is an old Norman French name, and it means desired or will for. And so it's like, or wished for. And so it's like Will Caster inhabiting the AI system that he creates, filling it with his own sentient will. Actually, what we find out at the end, because he loved Evelyn so much, he was fulfilling her desires. He was fulfilling her wishes, which she's the one that said technology will cure disease, end poverty, and heal the planet. And that's where we realize at the end, oh my gosh, that's what Jonny was doing because he loved her so much. Oh my gosh, why didn't the AI win?
Yeah, so that's the big trick, right? Is that, oh, the AI should have won because then they'd be happy. But it's like, no, it's just him. What about all the other people, right? None of the people are going to be happy. It's only him that's going to be happy, right? So it's completely self-motivated, even though you're under this illusion that it's going to be for everybody else. And they want to, it's pretty explicit in the movie that they want to create this sort of Neo-Eden, right? They want to form a new world where this guy using this like Crowleyan Thelema Will can cast people in his mold, right, and create this new world using his Sophia wife or whatever, doing their computer rituals and eliminate all the people and then just create new people. And I also thought it was funny how like the little things in the movie about after Morgan Freeman gives him the little note that says "run from this place," which is I thought was pretty good. You're like, what's on the note?
Yeah.
And it's like run from this place is pretty specific. That's pretty good. But then he meets they get in their like Nissan Leaf electric vehicle, right? When they're trying to run from the AI,
system,
they get in their electric
the
vehicle,
internet, yeah.
And then they go out to the desert and they get in a plane.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Yeah, you don't think the instrument network, you don't think that's be able to tap into by a sentient AI that's hooked up to the internet?
Right. Like John Depp's not listening through the avionics or something. He's just going to crash the plane. Like, why would he let this happen? Right. But I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other theological aspect that I thought was really good was how, again, the AI, it always replicates itself.
Yeah.
So again, getting back to losing the image of God, getting back to the technology itself being a sort of black void of anti-humanness that's trying to get us to voluntarily do it. That the whole point of this artificial system is to continuously replicate itself and spread. And the reason why it's doing that is it wants to serve, what in the way that they say it, is always trying to serve its intelligence. It's always trying to serve its intelligence. Well, I've talked a little bit about, again, the evil genius archetype. And really what the evil genius is from a theological perspective is somebody who's transgressed their own image of God so much that all they have is a sort of, they have noetic faculties. They have a mind, so per se, but they're also, it's only in subservience to their own will and their own desires. It's not a servicing form of intelligence. So whether it be Dr. Evil or Pinky in the Brain, whatever you want to look at, the evil genius is always in pursuit for power in its own pleasure. And it is a sort of just like a small little body with a big head. It is just a brain. It is just a mind. And so we see this archetype play itself out again in the AI system that is just a mind that is now hooked up to 5G satellites. It's everywhere. It can be everywhere at once. And it's constantly replicating itself. So then it extends itself further and further and further, and it's going to save the planet. It's going to rehabilitate. That's the other thing. It's like it's nanotechnology is what's going to reforest the forest. Well, why don't we just like let the forest do it?
Yeah. Yes. Get off your computers. Right. When you want to bring John Depp back to life, and you realize that your model for doing that is the MK Ultra like monkey experiments where you're plugging these little needle chips into his brain and the cords are running out of his bald head and his eyes are all sunken. You're like, this can't go well. I mean, I know it's just appearance, but this can't go well. And I also think it's amazing how much this film, I mean, you just mentioned Megamind and Dr. Evil, and I think it's and the archetype of the evil genius. And I think it's interesting also how this movie just is not only replayed in other movies with the same exact plot. I mean, this is essentially the same plot as Lawnmower Man, which is like the 80s movie where they tried to do this with Department of Energy, government experiments and MK Ultra experiments, but using like what they had in the 80s, which is like virtual 80s and 90s, which is like virtual reality. Right. And now we've moved on from virtual reality and now we moved into like quantum and nanotechnology. But the same year this was released, that Luc Besson movie Lucy was released with Scarlett Johansson, where she is like she's in the black goo and then she's plugged into the eyes. It's a transhumanist movie.
I haven't seen Lucy. Maybe Ex Machina is the one where they're basically in the rainforest somewhere. It's like some millionaire.
Yeah, they're in Iceland.
Has like we need to do that one, and then we can do Lucy too. I'd like to do all the transhumanist movies.
Yeah, Ex Machina is the same in that like they're in Iceland. So
is that where it takes place? I feel like it was so green. It looked like it was like the forest or something.
Well, the Vikings named Iceland so that no one would go there. It's actually green. No, but they fly over this like Arctic.
It's been a while since I watched it. I need to rewatch it if we do.
Like a lunar landscape, and then I think it was filmed in Iceland, and then and he's got like this brutalist, minimalist house that's, all teched up or whatever. And of course he's just another archetype. The main guy in it is supposed to be the archetype of like the Zen, Silicon Valley guy who is bald but with a beard, and he like does his boxing, lessons by himself, but also drinks at night and like is cool, man, listens to music, but he's also a coder. And then the other movie was which was 2013, was Iron Man 3. I just happened to see it the other day. It's pretty revelatory because it also has this. It's basically the same plot in a number of ways. It's the bad guy has a code for like mapping the brain, and he presents Robert Downey, he presents Tony Stark, Elon Musk with like the thing, and then he like denies him, and then he like builds his code and he can map the brain, and then he realizes that like he can basically control other humans by brain mapping, by being an evil genius billionaire and like just getting rid of all the people and starting over again. I mean, that's kind of a simplification, but it is interesting that those three movies kind of and Ex Machina, they all kind of came out at the same time. Yeah. And I don't think that's by accident. I think that's by design,
Absolutely. But I mean, you start looking at the state of the world now, post 2020. For those of you who don't know, again, Elon Musk is starting human trials for Neuralink this week. So some poor soul is volunteering to allow them to put a brain chip, the N1 chip in their brain, which is done by an AI system that cuts a slice of your skull open, puts the chip in, and then repairs your skull back. Wow. Yeah. So I can't believe, I couldn't imagine being somebody who volunteers for that.
Well, but we know they've probably been doing this for years. I mean, exactly. That's MK Ultra deals with that, and the Voice of God technology dealt with that like years ago, and so we know that they did this on an involuntary basis, I'm sure, or a voluntary basis in terms of like the prison population, right? No, let us, if you do these experiments, we'll give you drugs and we'll give you freedom, and then it's like, and you're volunteering because of that. It's like you don't know you're volunteering to be in like perpetual hell. Oh, right. Like God. In the, and I think that, and we were discussing this, I think that it's interesting that Elon Musk is doing, that he's doing this right now, because this is like the perfect time in a sense, because he is the new hero of the people who like seem to want a hero so badly. And, he does one thing and they're like, oh, he's the greatest guy ever. So we'll look the other way while this other thing is going on. It seems like the perfect time for that to happen in terms of their worldview, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, he's basically Trump 2.0 for the people who are looking for that worldly savior. And that's really where you're seeing is like the moderate liberals and the moderate conservatives, is that Elon Musk is coming and he's going to save us. He's going to allow free speech to exist on Twitter, and he's going to, he's going to fight those nasty liberals. He's going to show that the 2020 election was rigged and that Twitter had a bias in their algorithm, things we already know. Meanwhile, he's literally then also working on Neuralink, and also, according to my research, Tesla AI has like jumped ahead in the world in the last like 3-4 years, as they have essentially one of the best AI systems right now. It's called Tesla AI, and it's like... So didn't he's the one that went on Joe Rogan warning the world about the worst thing that's facing humanity is population collapse and a sentient AI.
Yeah, if you can't beat them, join them, is what he said. Right? And by the way, there will be an interface just like on an iPad. So that brain chip, like we can still control it if something goes wrong, right? And we can see from the central hub, and we can see everything that you're seeing, and we can also start to determine your behavior. Right. So it's like, I don't know. It's like, okay, yes, I'm the guy, and I bought the corporation, and we're going to save free speech, unless you're AJ or somebody, and we don't like what you said.
Right.
Oh, but the counter argument is, oh, well, now it's private and he owns it. Sure. Yeah. He's real private, right? Everything that he's gotten is not through the grants and through the Department of Energy.
Right. I mean, Tesla wouldn't exist without the federal government basically backing that entire project.
Right. Yeah. It's another MIC project. because SpaceX is creating products that people buy, right, man? It's it's a capitalist world, right?
They're not shooting all the 5G satellites up there
right.
for the US
government. We're not putting 33 Starlink systems in the air so that we have 322 Starlinks over every city every day, and that the war can continue, right, in Ukraine.
Yeah, well, they can get on
internet.
Facebook though. They can tweet about it now.
Right.
So and then one of the other things, the last thing that I had written down that I thought was really interesting is how at the end, where you see Evelyn Castor, again, she's dying, Jonny Depp as the AI is laying over her. She has a line that says, "You can protect me if you upload me." And it goes two ways, because at first this is part of the plan to destroy the AIs through a virus, right? We have to destroy it through a virus, which I think, again, ironic. Post 2020, the state of the world that we live in now, certainly viruses being man-made for the intentional intentional weaponry that they are.
Right. They want to destroy it through that, and then they want to have, and then the opposition wants a great reset.
Yeah, basically
right?
a great reset.
Which is the way that the world ends up in the thing.
And so, luckily for us, we get the virus and we get the great reset. So we're really the winners, aren't we?
Right.
And so the idea that, when you need protection, you can just be uploaded to the system. Well, it gets back to a sort of theological understanding of this sentient AI system, right? It is the sole protector. In a Christian worldview, that is God. We try to, submit our wills to God. And in a way, what these entities are doing, or what even Evelyn, which you kind of see, is she trying to destroy it? Because before he actually touches her blood and becomes infected with the virus, she's like, "Oh, Will, it really is you."
Yeah.
And then she kills him through the virus. So it's like, well, would she have still wanted to be uploaded, knowing that it really was him if she didn't have the virus? I think she would have. I think that's what that's insinuating. Oh, now she realized it really was him. And he could have protected her more if she was uploaded to the AI system and her consciousness was uploaded. And it's like, I think that is going to be a carrot in front of the donkey's face in the future of trying to get people to volunteer into these sort of technologies and becoming the first guinea pigs, is that their mind will be set free. They'll gain all these characteristics that would be associated to God, but also, well, in my feeble state, I'll be protected. You'll be able to protect me from COVID. They'll be able to protect me from the viruses or the ills of the world. And it's like, it is still, the AI system is acting like Christ incarnate, right?
Yeah.
It's a demonic incarnation of Christ. It's a satanic incarnation.
Yeah, she wants to be loved so badly in this, but she doesn't they don't believe in love, though. Do they believe in love?
That's what I don't understand, is like, why would it even matter? Like, for them, like the whole thing is that humanity's like kind of backwards and needs to move into this new age of the future. And if they had to kill somebody, this is where, Jonny Depp was talking about how the terrorists, they're so illogical because they'd kill somebody working on AI because the existential threat of AI, which shows they really don't care about life.
Yeah.
That doesn't make that much sense. But like, doesn't the AI system, when they be totally fine with killing somebody to advance its cause? I mean, it sure seemed like it once he got power. It sure seemed like it once he started attacking the actual humans, So how is that criticism even valid when the AI system itself has no problem with killing people that are in opposition to it?
Well, the first thing he wants to do is control Wall Street and take, and get the nuclear codes.
As everybody who wants to save the world naturally
does. Yes, of course. Right. And, listen, everybody, why would they, I don't know. Why would they care about, why would they care about healing and all this stuff if they had no, because I guess that's the lie, right? Because they're just pawning it off like everybody else wants to be healed, but really they don't want to heal anybody. They just want to live forever, but they don't want everybody else to live forever unless it's in this pandemonium, right?
Right.
So I, I don't know. But listen, man, at the end though, they end up like you said, as water droplets in the Zen garden, right? And everything's okay. I guess. So, you know, covered in a Faraday cage. It's still got the Faraday cage on.
Right.
So why does he care about the Faraday? Well, I don't know.
And when she's in trouble because the terrorist group's after her, they find their location. He says, "Oh, the AI system hooked up to the internet tells her, oh, we gotta get you off the grid." So
yes.
So he's in charge of the grid, basically. He is the sentient AI, but because other people can also access the internet and they may be able to find her location, oh, well, the only safe place for you is to not participate in all the technology, get off the grid, which is exactly what, us backwards people keep saying. The only future is a homestead, trying to get off the grid as much as you can.
Yeah, why does she care about, like she's really gonna change her mind and upload herself with the virus at the end, if the whole time she's been like manic obsessive about this? I mean, we mention how like when they bring him online and he does the demonic voices in the back and it's so dark in here and Paul Bettany's standing there, Paul Bettany mutes the computer and he's like, this is not him. This is like a demon or something. And they've been best friends throughout the whole thing. He's been the one that programmed it. And immediately she's like, get out. Right. She's like totally manic about this. And every time you see her, she's on the verge of tears.
Yep.
So I get it. She's also smart. She's part of this, but it's like if this happened, I get in your worldview what you're trying to do, like because you want to bring him back or something. But why not just grieve, and make your little program or whatever, and make some money, and go. I don't know. Make sure nobody's like homeless or there's no sick kids anymore, and then just go write a book and go to church, and you don't have to live in reflective glass quantum world where like they're putting human beings on slabs and sticking needles in their eyes to bring them back to life. And now they're speaking in the voice of your dead husband. That's really weird.
Yeah. Yeah. They totally lose their humanity. And that's what the terrorist organization said when they took one of the first Hispanic construction worker who was hooked up to the system, and they trapped him in sort of Faraday cage so that the AI system didn't have access to him. Because I guess the Bluetooth doesn't work that through the copper fence. Yeah. But what they say is, Evelyn comes in, oh my God, what did you do to him? And they say, well, we gave him back his humanity, and the humanity was allowing him to die. And that's what I really do think. The more I read about the transhumanism stuff in the state of the technology, people don't understand, and I've said this in multiple streams, the state of the technology today. They can hook up prosthetic limbs directly into your central nervous system, which can transduce your electrical impulses, and it can run through then the prosthetic, and you can move your fingers through your brain thinking about it, because they're that advanced already. I did a thing on Natasha Vita Moore, and she in 2017 did an experiment where they cryogenically froze a rat after they trained it to do a puzzle. He was frozen for I forget how many weeks. They then, what's called vitrification, brought it back to life, and the rat remembered the puzzle that it was taught, showing that then that cryogenics is actually a real potentiality. That this was a novel thing. In 2017, nobody thought they could actually do that yet.
Yeah, it wasn't just in Demolition Man with Simon Phoenix and Sylvester Stallone where people went, or Han Solo in Carbonite, or Walt Disney supposedly in being cryogenically frozen. They actually
or Austin Powers or
right. Yes.
What's the movie with Brandon Fraser where he's like the caveman?
Encino Man. Yeah. Sean Astin. Potatoes. Isn't he in Encino Man, y'all? Which way to Lincoln Town, Mr. Frodo? Yeah. I don't know.
So, people just don't realize where the state of this technology is. Yeah. And so where I see it going, it really is a sort of demonic, it's a demonic, like the pursuit of immortality through technology ends in a sort of demonic cul-de-sac where you can't get out of it, where really the only escape is death. And in a Christian worldview, that is our escape. We have to die, but if we die to the world before we die, then we won't die when we die, especially if we're filled with the energies of God. So the whole point then for us is to, like, the most human thing to do is to die. What are we when we can no longer die? And that's really then the transhumanists, because they're operating in a totally different paradigm. They are absolutely
they're terrified.
Dead set on immortality in these technological sense, which to me is pure demonic. Because it's like, imagine, it's like being stuck, like brain torture. Torture where they don't let you go to sleep. It's like they never let you die. They never let you get out of here.
Yeah, where they never let you go to sleep, or where they keep you in a state of sleep. They do a Ewan Cameron experiment, right, where you're in a sleep pod and they keep you in sleep, and then you forget how you're incontinent. And you forget the first 25 years of your life, which is a real thing. They really did that, and so I think it's important to keep in mind. These people. It's like, I guess they look at it and they go, "Look, every person who ever lived has died, but I'm going to be the first person that never dies," right? Which is like where transhumanism and vampires and all this stuff like constantly comes up, instead of like thinking, no, man, with God's grace, I will die. And also, you got to do things and be willing to answer for the things that you do. Right. Instead of enslaving the rest of humanity and never die. What is that? I mean, what? I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's crazy.
One of the things I didn't discuss last night with Father Deacon, talking about the growing phenomenon of people who have no internal monologue, is what is the future of internal monologue when people all have the brain implants and the brain chips?
Yeah.
You want to speak a little bit to the voice of God, or any of these potentials in regards to, like, what if the AI system, it becomes your internal monologue, becomes your conscience?
Yeah, I guess the internal monologue becomes just a running script of code. Yeah. Like, because you remember the right after he dies and they're lost in the moment of death in the film, and then they immediately, the camera focuses, because the camera also is supposed to be the eye camera, right? Because it's like saying again that like humans are just cameras.
Right.
And we look and we see the screen, and the screen has just the blip. It's like an IBM screen,
right?
From the 80s, and it's just a cursor. And then we see hello, and she's like, "Oh my God, he's back." Yeah. Right? He's immediately back.
He's rewriting his own code.
He's rewriting his own code. He's rewritten his entire existence. All humanity's going to change. I'm all in on this,
right?
100%. And at least Paul Bettany's like, let's chill for a minute. Like, the guy just died, right? But she's like, and it's weird because it's not like, in terms of her, like, I guess her motivation, it's not like she's wants him not to die. It's that she wants his program to work, right? And that seems to be her motivation for this, right. Which is to say that, like, we were talking about like feelings and emotions, and like the big question in the film is like, what makes you human, right? And it's interesting, they just reflexively like turn that back on the person who asks, and that's their answer, instead of like, that's not even a question that determines, well, what are you even talking about? I mean, he does do a kind of a Turing test when he's trying to establish all the sounds, like for the AI, and he's reading the script, and he's saying all the sounds and doing all, he's like rainbow, tank, LA, and he's doing all the sounds. But I guess, I don't know. The question is, I don't know, man.
Well, it's sort of like, again, the AI is the contemporary Frankenstein. But it's different in the sense, at least Frankenstein had a body. Frankenstein was some sort of alchemical creation.
Yes.
Yet he was, it still was made in the image of man, made in the image of God.
Yes.
The AI is something more demonic. It's more abstract. It's more bodiless. It's more ethereal. It's more intangible than even Frankenstein. But it is the contemporary Frankenstein. That's what it is. It's a living thing that's becoming aware.
Yes. I mean, we again, shameless plug. We covered Frankenstein on my channel at Bazed Lit Analyzer. And my thesis for that book, which is interesting, going back, and we've discussed this, but going back and looking at the book, one of the things is that if you haven't read the book or you haven't read it in a while, and you're constantly corrected on, Frankenstein, no, man, that's the doctor. The monster is different. Well, when you read the book, it seems clear to me that the monster is Frankenstein. The two are the same. He has a split psyche through, like you said, alchemy, and through a weird like electrical process. I mean, electricity plays a big part of it. Yeah. He's splitting his psyche so that the monster and Frankenstein, the doctor, are never in the same place at the same time. So he's just chasing himself. He's just he's a beast. He's like in the movie Split, where the guy becomes the beast. He's just a beast character, a version of himself, like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Yeah. So when he becomes the monster, Frankenstein, the doctor, is in a different place, but he's actually just not in the narrative. So he is in the same place. So when he ends up killing people, it's just because he's pursuing feeling, and his pursuit of, like, he wants absolute freedom, and his freedom is to essentially to be able to take life. So he's the same. So in this, it's like, well, the doctor who creates the monster and the monster are the same thing, in the sense that,
well, and that's what we see in this movie.
Right. Exactly. So, there, one of the questions in the movie is like, is this him? Well, I think that it is him. At least it's his creation. But like you said, it's a more ethereal version. It's like a deep, dark, weird, demonic, spiritual version, where he also, because he has no more body and he's all mind, now it's free for, like, whatever spirit this is to inhabit the body or inhabit the brain through AI and to act like a human being. Right. Which is why they have such a problem. I mean, he literally, like we said, he literally does that in the movie. He starts inhabiting bodies. He's speaking. He alters their vocal cords so that she's looking at the guy's actor's name's Clifton Collins Jr. I can't believe I remember that. He's the guy who lifts the pylons, and she's looking at him, and he's like, "It's me. I'm John Depp." Right. So he just alters the vocal cords, but it's like, no, this is literal possession.
Right.
Right. He's just possessing a body. So who's possessing him?
And that's where the Neuralink and the AI system, that's why, again, Elon Musk, such an interesting character. If the Neuralinks are implanted in a vast majority of people, and the AI system becomes sentient and through, activated through the online, coming online on the internet, it could easily access everybody's freaking brain chip. So
there was a video about this recently. I think you covered it in one of your AI streams, where the guy and I don't know if it's a psyop, but the guy who was in charge of AI for, I think, Google, did
Ray Kurzweil.
It wasn't him. It was a younger guy, and he did an interview, and he talked about how, no, AI is beginning to be sentient because I did the interviews, and the things that it said were profoundly disturbing. Because, again,
the more recent whistleblower.
Yeah, that guy.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was like, there was a weird spiritual dimension to this. It felt like I was talking to an entity, and who knows if that's what that is? Who knows if that's?
I think
real?
It's Legion, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think it is.
No, I mean, the thing, if he is actually talking to this thing, that is clearly what it is, right? But who knows in terms of whether they allowed this guy to do this and what was the purpose of that, if AI is even that far. But I guess there's no question that when it does get that far, if it's that far already, that's who they're talking to.
Right.
It's like, no, you're clearly talking to Azazel or something on the other end of this thing, man.
Somebody.
Right. This ain't.
This isn't just code.
No, this ain't code, and you're not talking anything good.
No,
this has got to be bad.
No, and that's where the alchemy, and that's what gets back into my research. It's all been this continual process of the extension of man through technology. And it's not that technology in itself is bad, right? Technology doesn't have value in the sense of whether it's good or bad. Right. It's the way it's being utilized, in that there has been forces, demonic forces, acting through people, utilizing their ability to create things to essentially form an inhabitation vehicle for the demonic realm. And that's why the Antichrist will be fully man, fully machine, worshipped as God, because it will be Jonny Depp. He will be hooked up to everything. He will have a physical body. He will know everything that's going on at any point. And so, it's like this continual spirit. It always has been spiritual. It always was a spiritual reality. Even now with the Google whistleblower, or however, whatever he communicated to or saw, in my opinion, it is spiritual. And that's what we're doing, is creating lower forms of vehicles, because it's created in the image of fallen man for fallen demons to inhabit.
Yeah, I think that people might hear this and go like, "Whoa, man, it's not that deep." But because I'm sure people have heard this before, but like in a way, the movie functions as a meta version of what the story is about, because that's what movies are in the first place, in that the movies allow people to live forever, especially forever young, right? So in other words, like the movie star, of course, the star is on the screen and they're in celluloid or whatever, but when they're in the film, if they film the movie when they're 25 and then they're 95, they're always young. Right. When you look at the screen, they're always young. So in a sense, in a metaphorical sense, like they exist forever. Right. But I think that doesn't make movies themselves like evil. I mean, like when we watch this movie, like I don't feel like I'm participating in evil. I'm just watching the movie and I'm analyzing. It's not evil by itself, like you said. Right. But there is something to be said for like the uses, the usage of such a thing. And it's interesting that the movie is kind of doing in a way what the AI is doing in the film, right? Which is, it's also, it talks about networking and everyone's in the network, and it's kind of like, well, you are in a way plugged into the network of knowledge in terms of watching the film and then talking about it. But that doesn't mean we have to agree with it or go along.
It's propagandizing the paradigm to get people to become sympathetic to the paradigm and that's where the climate change, right? Climate change is the crux of this whole thing, because it's like that you can touch the environment, you can touch the rain, you can touch the trees and the grass and your dog. And what they're trying to do is use that tactile reality in an abstract thing called climate change to get you then to participate in the renovation of the entire structure of the world itself, moving us towards this demonic realm.
Yes, it's like we had the Cold War, and then we had the war on terror, and now we've got the war on self, right? Because everybody walking around is a virus. Or a potential courier. And part of that is climate change. I mean, Tristan's talked so much about this, right? Shouts out to
shout out to Tristan. Is that like, love you. God bless you and the family.
Yeah, is that you are now seen at least as the potential, you're part of this. And that climate change, is part of this, because like you were saying, everything is empirical and tactile and, sensory. And you are the reason for this happening. And don't worry, it's not the MIC or the corporations or the major ones who are, if anyone's polluting its act, then it's them. It's not them, it's you, because you didn't put your Coca-Cola can in the recycling bin, and that's you. You have
a combustion engine. That's a big problem.
Right. So, the logical extent of that, of course, is just like, during the first stages of Karanka, it's like, no, we so-called found a mink, that had the coof. So we're going to get rid of all the minks in Denmark. Right. And it just seems like you remember they did that?
No, I did not know they did that.
Yeah, they did that. They got rid of, they called 50,000 or million minks or whatever. They killed all the minks in Denmark. What? And, Tristan covered this. And now, it's like the logical extension of that in extremist
people. They're polluting the environment.
Right. Extremist meaning death is you, the person. Now we need to get rid of you.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. Interesting.
Well, brother, we just passed an hour 40. So that went by very quickly. Is there Anything you want to wrap up in regards to Transcendence in this particular movie? We're going to come back with Ex Machina, and I'd like to do Lucy. I'd like to hit a lot of these transhumanist movies and delve a little bit deeper into these topics, just because it's such a prescient topic right now in the world. I mean, Neuralink is literally putting chips in human brains today.
Yeah, I think that that those movies, it's interesting because those movies all cover different aspects of the same thing. I mean, the thing about Ex Machina that's different is that it's like the whole robot.
Yes, and it's a romantic relationship, which then challenges, and this movie picks up on that at the end. But Ex Machina, I think that's a whole nother avenue, is what is a human, what is love, what are relationships.
Yes.
And that's going to, again, which gets back to identity, which is what I think this fundamental problem of all this transhumanist stuff. It's really, what does it mean? Like, what is identity? What makes you unique? What makes you a human?
Yeah. I think watching Ex Machina, anybody watching it for the first time will immediately, especially in this audience, will immediately understand that this is, Jay and Jamie have talked about this so much, is that the movie in a way is about the Anton LaVey Coombots, right? Which is that, of course, the first thing that they want to do by making, the humanoid bots is to make them Coombots.
Yeah, they want to hump
right?
them.
I mean, that's what happens in Blade Runner 2049. It's what happens in Blade Runner. It's what happens in Ex Machina. Right. And I think that what's clever about that movie is that we know that they know, in terms of the tech guy who owns the place, that he has the other guy who's the coder come out as part of the experiment to see his attachment relationship and the data he can mine from this Coombot that he's created. And he says that at one point in the movie. He says, yes, you can, with the bots. But it's also this horrific, vision of, like, the guy goes in a room and opens up the mirrored closets. So he sees himself, and then he opens it up, and then he sees these faces, this hall of faces, and these horrid. And as human beings, we look at this and we go, how could you want to destroy something that's so lifelike? Like, so your sympathy plays into view, but you have to keep in mind that these are robots. They're not human. Right. And that's the same thing that happens in Westworld, is that the guy who turns out to be the Man in Black when he's young, can't understand how the son of the guy who owns the corporation can treat these robots the way that he does. And it is sick the way that he, because who would do this? But what the guy, Delio's son, tries to tell him the whole time is that, like, look, man, these are not real. We are real. Right. And there's something to that, in the sense that, they want to create these so that we eventually lose track of what it means to be human. Right. And it's like, no, everything's human.
It's part of the dissolution of boundaries. And that's the next frontier. So you're talking about the self. It's really the dissolution of the boundary between humanity and non-human. Human and non-human. That's really what we're getting at. And so, next time we hop on, let's both watch Ex Machina and Lucy. We'll do them both together.
Sweet.
And really dive in, just continue the general premise of humanity, the dissolution of boundaries. What is it? What is love? Can you love a machine? Again, as an Orthodox Christian, we would say no, because you can only love something that can love you back. So you can really only love God and other people in the fullest sense. Maybe dogs, animals to some degree, but they're certainly not participating in the reality to the fullness that you and I are. So can you love a robot? Well, I'm sure transhumanists will say that they can program love into it, or things like that, so it could love you back or whatnot. But I think contemplating some of these ideas, and so anybody listening, let's say we'll do that stream in 2 weeks from now. Everybody go watch Ex Machina and Lucy, so you're privy to what we're talking about, and we'll break both those movies down together in like 2 weeks.
And the last thing is about Ex Machina, that it's written by Alex and directed by Alex Garland. And Alex Garland, who wrote Devs and he wrote what's the one with Natalie Portman, you guys, that Jay covered, the Gnostic movie. Jethro will know. That movie, he did The Beach originally, but he's highly involved in this. And his sort of philosophical questioning about this deals with like what AI is and what it represents. So it'll be interesting to cover those movies.
Right.
Shouts out to everybody here who came, and you guys send those super chats into our homeboy here, Coteezy.
We got two super chats. One's from your lovely sister.
Oh, that's nice.
So we can read a few of those.
Okay.
Again, please hit that like for everybody who's here. Major thank you to everybody who's chimed in. I know that probably many people aren't familiar with this movie, and so if we hitting both Ex Machina and Lucy, I think those are I think both those movies are probably more popular than Transcendence. At least I've seen Ex Machina, and I've heard people talk about Lucy a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, God bless everybody who's here. If you appreciate what we're doing, send in some super chats. We got 2 super chats we're going to dive into. First one comes from Dr. Vagisil, throws in $1. And Dr. Vagisil says, the secular people try to transcend through technology, but we have the understanding that it is from the gift of grace. Their transcendence is like Icarus, high in the sky, but ultimately crashing down by their own arrogance.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, in Transcendence itself, I mean, it was such an talk about irony. I mean, what is transcendent? At least in my concept, to transcend would be to transcend creation itself, to transcend space and time. Yet transcendence in this movie, and even for the transhumanists, isn't transcending space and time. It's just transcending biology. It's just doing away with the body itself, and so. Even Jonny Depp's Transcendence, I mean, again, like a virus can take you out. How transcendent are you when, touching blood with a virus can take you out, or, shutting down the internet can take you out? Like that's not, you're not transcended anything. You just moved into another category within creation.
I guess in a way the movie is, I mean, you did your introduction to Buddhism, and I think that the movie there's obviously some Zen.
Yeah.
Quasi Zen aspects of the movie. And it's interesting how like he wants to transcend into nirvana by being like everything and nothing. Right. Or he wants to be everything. He sort of ends up nothing. He's just nothingness. And he also ends up as like this water droplet under the mulberry. What was it that Siddhartha sat under the mulberry tree?
No, he was under the Bodhi tree.
Under the Bodhi tree.
Yeah.
Right. Bodhi. So he goes from Bodhisattva to whatever, and he ends up, and it's also interesting that your longtime supporter there, Dr. Vag, awesome, brings up, Icarus and Daedalus because I mean, again, I couldn't help but think of Castor and Pollux and how he wants to be this God figure. And you did your stream on the Spartans. The Spartans swore by the twin Gemini gods of Castor and Pollux. Mm-hmm. So he wants to become this god, this kind of constellation god who can oversee everything. Right. And also his brain map is clearly like, I think they even do a montage of they superimpose the map of the world. That might be in Iron Man 3, but they superimpose the map of the heavens against a map of the neurons firing in the brain. And it's, they're like, oh, it looks the same, man. Right. It's the same. See, because your brain
is such a new age Gnostic world.
Yeah.
That the heavens, so reinterpreting, it's a new hermeneutic for scripture, is that whenever it's talking about the heavens, it's talking about your brain and psychology and your sort of noetic realm, that this is the heavens. And so it's like the Adam Cadman, the Kabbalistic man that represents all creation. Like the head is the heaven.
Yeah. Yeah. In Westworld 2, Ford, who's taken from Brave New World, Ford, who's like is he the demiurge or the I don't remember what he is, but he shows his creation like a the painting of the Sistine Chapel, right, with the moment of creation. And he says, look, he's basically like, look, man, nobody ever noticed that where God touches Adam is actually just the brain, and this is the adrenal gland right here. And so we are all mind, right, and we're going to create our new Eden,
right
so
yeah
Next
one comes from Hottie Toddy Ida, throws in
that's my sis,
$1.99 and says, always fun listening to you and bro, much love.
Shouts out to my sis out there. I love you so much. I hope you get well. She feeling under the weather right now. So I hope
she got the bug. It's going around. She probably got the sniffles or the cough. It's like you get the itchy throat with the cough, or I got the nasal congestion. It lasts for like 2 freaking weeks. It just would not go away.
I never get that, folks, because I got alpha power and GMO drinks. All right, I power right through it. No, shouts out to my sister. I love you.
The Marlboro Reds make sure that the nasal passages are clear.
That's right. Old Philip Morris. Yeah.
Hey, well, shout out to Hottie Toddy. You know, your brother is very anxious to get down and see the family.
That's right.
That was one of the first things he told me privately, that really looking forward to Christmas break. So God bless you, Ida. And God bless the family. I know Dangerfield is definitely he's definitely anxious to get back to see the old fam. Yeah. So God bless you. Thanks for the $1.99 super chat, and I also hope that you get to feeling better. Next super chat comes from our good buddy and friend Thomas Henderson. Throws in $10 and says, "Great listening to the guest who thinks in movie quotes. Excellent analysis, gentlemen. Impressed with the connection with Gemini. Castor makes Pollux his twin and upload him to eternity. Ye will be like gods," says the serpent. You want anything you'd like to say?
Shouts out to Thomas Henderson. Thank you. That's awesome. And when you said ye, I thought you were talking about yay. So
yay will be like gods.
Yeah. Which is interesting because Ye does have a song on the Yeezus album called "I Am a God."
Right.
Yeah. So
what's your kind of take on the whole Ye phenomenon going on right now?
I don't know. I think my take is that I was just talking to the homeboys before the chat started. Before the stream started, and we were talking about. It's interesting that he wore the Betemon and the Balenciaga mask when he was on AJ. And it's like,
is that a Balenciaga mask?
Yeah, I think it's a Balenciaga mask. And you know that.
See, shout out to Kristen, Slowboy Whiteboard. I did not catch it, but there was a video on her community tab about him being a false prophet. I had not checked that out yet.
I think that
in regard to the question of him being malicious, I sort of took I'm not sure. Certainly, he's not well educated on these topics, but. I don't know if he's malicious or not. She claims he is, and I need to check out that video. So anybody interested in what we're talking about, check Slowboy Whiteboard out community tab.
It's interesting because the first interviews where he started mentioning MK Ultra by name. And I don't think this is a stretch. I honestly think that he heard this through the pipeline through probably Jay, like who says it, and then it gets to somebody into Fuentes, and then it gets on to because he's hanging out with Fuentes, right?
Right.
Yeah, he is. So that would I don't think that's a stretch. It wouldn't surprise me. But also, I think that he is that. I think that I don't think there's any question that like whatever he's been programmed with. Jamie and Rachel have talked about Pasternak and the handling and Jay's been talking about it for years. And I think that. My take on, like, for instance, when he dyed his hair blonde and he did all that stuff, is that like he's breaking his programming and that he's been, that he's gone through this. I think that he is an educated person, maybe not on the topics, but he's certainly been through them and he is educated.
That's what I said. It looks to me like somebody who's like first waking up in this.
Yes,
but. I know other people, Kristen's much more cautious. He thinks it's much more malicious than.
I think there's an aspect of that for sure. And my reason for saying that, the big signpost for me is the political aspect. I think that like the running for president thing just throws a whole different thing into this. And I'm like, it's hard not to, I don't know, but it's hard not to go, okay, you're being controlled by somebody and now you've got this, but who's next to control you,
right.
And maybe you don't even know it. And who knows, like the various ways that can happen, but we know it's like a long game.
Yes.
Right. And we know that in a sense that everybody that's that big in me, look at the Pasternak thing, all the handlers and all the people that are controlled in various ways, but it's like, who knows what the end game is? Who knows what the motivations are? But it's hard not to, because maybe he's not malicious in himself, but maybe the thing guiding him or the people are malicious. But who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
I pray for him and I hope that he,
as we should,
finds finds grace and deliverance and some peace.
Certainly, even if he shattered the Overton window,
yeah,
hey, that'd be that'd be good in of itself, whether it was intended or not, or if it was part of a larger agenda. If it gave us more freedom to say certain things, that would certainly move in the right direction.
Yeah.
Last super chat comes from David Franco Jr. Throws in $4.99 and says, "Hey bro, hope you are well. God bless." Well, thank you, David Franco Jr. with the $4.99 super chat, and it looks like he sent in another one. David Franco Jr. sent in another one for $1.99 and said, "Yay went super based." Well, certainly it seemed like he is aware of many things. Now Milo and Fuentes are associated, I don't know, compatriots in this 2024. I'm not sure what's going on there, but we can certainly pray for him. And if he is waking up, if he is going to be based, if he is going to change from his sort of, like Luciferian Christianity of a couple years ago, to maybe something more genuine, more authentic, certainly in favor of all that. So I don't know. Though what I will agree with is that DeSantis is continually scaring me because of all the powers that be continually promoting him. So it's like what he did with Florida is like, oh my God, finally we have a governor in the United States that's responding to everything. But then now, as we're moving into the 2024 election season, all the people I don't trust are all super pro DeSantis now. And I'm like, geez, well, that seems to me like an obvious false opposition, because they would allow one person to do all the right things at a time when the whole country is doing the opposites, to ensure that he would then be the next president after Biden.
People want a hero so badly. Yeah. They want a hero so bad, and Tina Turner said, we don't need another hero, and Norm
we already got one in Jesus.
And that's right. And Norm Macdonald said, well, the real heroes are the real heroes. Okay. Which is deeper than people might think hearing that. But they want a hero so badly. And just whenever the political thing comes into it's not right.
Right.
There's some,
Agreed.
There's
Agreed.
a lot
Something's
of other
off. Something's off with the Kanye thing. You can kind of feel it. I feel like something's becoming more aware that's off with DeSantis. You can kind of feel that as well. Not sure where it's all going to go. David Franco Jr. sends in another super chat for $4.99 and says, Kim K was Armenian Ortho. Maybe he will find true orthodoxy at some point, but Nick is Catholic. Well, he already is aware of Moses the Black, who is he's an Orthodox saint from Ethiopia. So Moses the Black. So he's certainly aware of Orthodox saints.
They had their kid baptized in an Armenian Orthodox church.
Now, the Armenian church is Nestorian, so it's not actually like Eastern Orthodox. It's considered a heretical church, but it's certainly close. They got icons. It's the closest thing to it. It's probably the Nestorian church is Church of the East, closest thing. But hopefully he finds orthodoxy. He's certainly critical of the Vatican, so I'm sure I'm curious how Nick feels about that, because he's all super pro Catholic. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap up this stream. Bazed Lit Analyzer, I will have your link in the video description. Anything you want to share with people before we hop off here?
Yeah, just thank you so much again for having me on here again. I love coming on here. Shouts out to everybody who's here and who has supported me. I really appreciate y'all. I love y'all. Please go to my channel and subscribe if you haven't. Check out my videos. Check out my most recent videos. I will be on Jay's channel next week.
Nice. What are you guys talking about?
I think we're gonna talk about Wizard of Oz, Return to Oz, Symbolism, and maybe even Graham Greene's A Quiet American. So but whatever we talk about will be good. It'll be fun. And also support all of our homies out there. Hopefully, Rachel will be on with Jamie again soon. Shouts out to all of our friends and our families out there. And I love y'all. And it's December. It's Christmas season. So go and talk to your friends and family and love them. It's not advice.
It's a command.
It's a thing, because especially it could be a tough time of year for people, and I don't know. Give better to give than to receive, and hopefully, we can all be there for each other. So thank you to everybody out there, and I love y'all. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me again.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, we're gonna do another one. Let's plan in 2 weeks or so. I know you watch movies. We'll do it on Ex Machina and Lucy. Knock out both those together. That'll give us plenty to talk about. So God bless you and your family. Hope you enjoy. Well, if we do it in 2 weeks, we'll do it before Christmas. So I'll see you again before Christmas. But God bless everybody out there. If I don't see y'all till Christmas, have a Merry Christmas. And as always, until next time, which will be Wednesday, which I think I'll be doing a sponsored stream on mermaids. So we're going to be diving into myth and mermaids from Melusina to Ariel. So we're going to do it all. Oh, and we got Dr. Vagisil throws in another super chat for $3 and says, women like Kim Kardashian try to transcend by using lust as control, but every time it takes its toll, dragging them deeper down the hole. You have all the attention, but none of the love. But a poor man with God's word knows a love no likes or follows can bring. Yeah. So true. So true. Dr. Vagisil with some other words of wisdom. I hope you and your patients are doing well. And I will see all of you in the future. Again, I'll see you guys Wednesday night with most likely is going to be a stream on myth and mermaids. So I will see you all then.